Hi there, I'm Danny, spiritualtherapist.com, and I'm bringing to you today a little more information and another tool to use in your spiritual toolkit at this time on our planet. And the gift I'm giving is a therapy that I teach with clients that come to see me for different things, mostly trauma-based. And this is a therapy that we call timeline therapy. And I have used it for myself, on myself. And I'm so happy to report that this is something you can do yourself without a therapist. You claim your own power, as we all should be doing. And that aside, also, with therapy, therapists, every different kind of therapist you can imagine, the way the human consciousness has grown and developed and evolved over the last 50 years, we're at a point now where we're able to learn techniques safely and create our own safe space, or even sitting with a friend and allow ourselves to go through, because not everyone can afford a session with me, for example. So I'm going to gift you this timeline therapy, and I think it's particularly useful for those of us that have gone through grief, are going through grief, are living through grief. So many people are dying, have died, may die, will die, could die, and it's causing a lot of trauma in people. I think the worst thing we do is torment ourselves with coulda, woulda, shoulda. If someone you love or like or knew has crossed, has passed, has died, they've died. Okay. And it's really important that you take care of yourself from that point on. It's so important that you let those feelings come through, that you let yourself feel the feelings. Don't try and be brave, because that's just not going to work. We want to cry out, shout out, swear out, kick out, punch out, beat up the sofa, got to move the energy in the body, Timeline therapy is where you sit and you take some deep breaths in through the nose, out through the mouth and down into the belly, in through the nose, out through the mouth and down into the belly. And what you're doing when you breathe in is you're releasing brain chemistry. The 3 brain chemicals you're releasing instantaneously are serotonin, dopamine, and endorphins. They make you feel good, they relax you. It's a one breath, right? What you do in your mind's eye is you go a few minutes before your trauma, grief, or upset happened. And so you see yourself approaching the event where somebody has died, or you've heard that they've died, or maybe you're with them, like I was, when somebody has their fall and never wakes up again. And you go a couple of minutes before, and what you do is you imagine seeing yourself flying up and going over the whole event. So you look down over the event, and then you land 2 or 10 minutes after the event. So what you're doing is you're allowing yourself to go there, and you're disassociating in some way in order to be able to cope. And what happens is, because the unconscious doesn't know whether it's real or not, it's a wonderful gift and helper in helping you separate from the trauma and being able to become more neutral in terms of your healing, gaining further rapidity in the overall healing of such a horrible thing. I'm going to share my worst thing that ever happened to me. It was last year, last July the 30th. And I was engaged to the most beautiful man. His name is Jeff Smith. And we were so looking forward to our future together. And he didn't have any signs or symptoms that he was ill. In fact, that morning he was jumping around going, babe, I'm 225. I've never been this weight. We worked really hard on ourselves. We were really into training and eating clean and living a good life, and that suited us. And the last thing he did, he said, he goes, I'm so tired. I'm like, okay, I'm going to run you a bath. I'm going to put Epsom salts on your back. I'm going to rub your feet with Epsom salts. I'm going to take care of you. I cooked dinner. Well, when I say I cooked dinner, I threw some things together. I'm a terrible cook, but he had it. And then we went in the kitchen, put the plates down. He took my face in his hands and he said, have I told you I love you today? Have I told you I love you today? And he's such a handsome, beautiful guy. And then he literally turned around, put his hand on the shelf, and then looked at me. And then he looked at the space beside me. And he went, oh, wow. Like he was looking at angels, whoever came for him, because at that second he dropped to the floor. And he was a huge, big guy, over 6 foot, muscles, massive guns, beautiful, beautiful man. And he just dropped, he just crumpled to the ground. I remember catching him before he hit his head on the ground. And then I thought he was having a seizure. Then I know what to do. I'm trained. Then I thought he was having a heart attack. I'm trained in CPR too. So I'm doing all of these things. And anyway, a long story short, he never came home to us. He never woke up. He never woke up. And I'm so glad I am a therapist and that I can share this with you and my story and my getting through the grief of this, because I'm very much still in the throes of grief. People that knew him, you meet someone like Jeff Smith, you're not ever quite going to be the same again, that's for sure. What I want to share is that I recognized that I was having violent PTSD at different times. Once he had gone and cremated and I'd moved out of the country, we lived in America together. I couldn't live there. I ran away to Costa Rica. And it was just every moment of every day, a song, a thought. I'd smell him, I'd feel him, I'd think about him, and I would just lose it. I'd lose it. And I was really depressed, and I was definitely suicidal. I was absolutely hopeless. I just did not want to be on the planet without him, and I want to say to you that I truly believe this is a normal feeling. It sounds so dramatic, doesn't it? You wanted to kill yourself because your husband to be dropped, dropped, a terrible heart attack, never woke up, awful. Again, you've got to feel the feelings, cry, feel the feelings, admit your feelings to people. I became a hermit. I didn't want to speak to anybody. I couldn't work. I couldn't function. Is still to this moment like the worst thing I've ever experienced. And I remember one day thinking, I'm going to try the timeline therapy. So I sat on the sofa and I took some deep breaths. And then I imagined myself sitting with him on the sofa. And right before we go into the kitchen, right before he takes my face in his hands and says, "Have I told you I love you today?" Every girl's dream, right? With a beautiful man like that. What I do is I then imagine myself going up and out of my body. And then I see myself floating over the event where he turns, he puts his hand on the shelf, and then he collapses onto the ground. I catch him before he falls. I'm lying down with him. I'm screaming to 911. I'm pumping and breathing and pushing on his huge, ginormous chest and trying to get his heart going. And all of that terrible trauma that I hadn't realized was still stuck in my body. And I want to say to you, you don't have to listen to one other person on the planet. You know what you go through. You know how you respond. There could be 10 people that witness the same trauma, same violent act, same death, whatever. And it can still affect you in a much deeper way than them, right? It doesn't mean it's better or worse. It's just you, you've got to honor you. So when you float up, few minutes before the event, you see yourself floating over. So I look down, I see Jeff on the ground. I see me trying to breathe into his mouth and CPR and do everything. And I'm falling apart and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, and come back. And it's all very dramatic. And then I land back down on the floor a minute after, when they're taking him on the trolley to hospital, or the gurney, the trolley gurney, the wheelie thing, the stretcher with the wheels. And the firemen and the because it was firemen, they were the closest people to come to our house, and we lived on 2 acres of land. We lived in a dome, a solar dome home. It was amazing. So timeline therapy, as I'm saying, hopefully explaining it very clearly, giving my own real-time to date experience of how I myself have managed to allow myself to, again, feel the feelings, have the cry, beat the crap out of the sofa. I do all of those things. I scream, I cry, I still dream about him. I still roll over in bed and expect him to be there, and he isn't, I forgot he was dead yesterday. It's over a year. I forgot he was dead yesterday. I was in the bathroom and I went, Jet, not there. Then I had a good cry, and I'm like, how fucking dare you leave me? That's okay too. Anger, rage, sadness, disappointment, hopelessness, suicidal ideation momentarily, admitting, because you go to the very depth of emotion. No one can prepare you for it, not even a grief counselor, not your mum, your dad, your husband, your wife, your brother, your sister, your dog, your cat, your gerbil. No one can gift you what you need in its entirety. except you. You take snippets of everything people say when it comes to moving through grief, okay? And recognize that our cells can hold on to the trauma of such a violent death or such a violent collapse or such a violent impact when you hear somebody's died, somebody's dying, you've got no time to prepare, you weren't expecting it. Be loving with yourself. Be kind to yourself. And I hope you're not with family or partners, lovers, spouses that don't allow you to have your rage, your cry, your grief, that don't support you in this time when there's so much death, you know, unfortunately. And it isn't about preparing for, you know, a ton of death. It's about recognizing that there is a way to move through the grieving process. Timeline therapy, as I've explained it, hopefully well enough for you to really have an analogy. I think and absolutely believe that having a story, and I know I've used the most personal story I possibly ever could, but I'm okay with that. If it's going to help you, if it's going to help you connect and relate to yourself on another level, another layer of your evolving human consciousness and a way to self-soothe, self-nourish and self-heal, then I'm happy to do it. And I send you all my love, and I'm really happy to share the story of my beloved Jeff Smith. And I tell you what, he was such a humanitarian. He was such an angel man. He devoted the rest of his life to helping the children, to helping people. He was the kind of guy that would go off and I go, hey, darling, where are you? You okay? What are you up to? He'd be like, oh, I'm just looking for someone to bless. You know, he'd be driving around looking for somebody in trouble, you know, and give him a tenner or a 20, you know. He was just the most amazing, beautiful man. So again, very happy to share my beautiful beloved. Now, I'm sure he's a general in the army of angels and fighting injustice and the evil on the planet. All right, so I'm going to leave you with that. Hope it wasn't too long and rambly, but seriously, we're all in this together. Let's all love on each other. Let's lift each other up. Let's support each other with tools, with gifts, with therapeutic remedies, with spiritual notions that are going to help guide and love. Okay. I'll see you soon.